joined now by Professor Musa Xulu, Executive Director of the Heritage Development Trust. And Prof, I'm told you're joining us from the KZN North Coast tonight. Good to have your company. Earlier, when we were trying to link up to you, I mentioned the fact that you met the King as a 27-year-old, and it was music that brought you together. Take us back to that period and how you came to meet. Okay, I think there's definitely an issue between ourselves and the Prof. Prof, I think you've muted yourself. Are you able to unmute?
Sorry.
Professor Xulu, I can hear you now. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Fantastic. Let's go back to the late 80s when you met the King. You were a researcher involved with AmaZulu Zulu at the time.
I was a...
Prof?
Yes, no, I was a Master of Music student at the then University of Natal in Durban, and I was teaching music at the College of Education in Pietermaritzburg. And then we heard that there was this interview, this wedding of the King to Queen Thandi. So I assembled a team to go and record the wedding. When I arrived there at Ulundi, the aides to Chief Mangosuthu Buthelezi came to my, came and asked me what I wanted. I told them that I'm an ethnomusicologist. I'm recording music. I want to record AmaZulu songs and all the proceedings of the traditional Zulu wedding, because this was the epitome, the highest that could have been. And then Chief Buthelezi took me in, interviewed me, and then referred me to the King, and then to Prince, the King referred me to Prince Gideon, and then the rest is history. Throughout then, I've been working on this project of AmaZulu songs until today, as I have now a project called House of Shaka, which is a historical, which is a choral musical that records the history of the Zulu people and the liberation story since the times of Shaka Zulu until Nelson Mandela gave us freedom in 1994. The King was always in music. He's always been dancing. He's always been singing. He's always been surrounded by Amabutho. He's always been with Mangosuthu. And then also President Jacob Zuma used to go there a lot. It's always been about renewal of Zulu traditions, renewal of Africanicity, renewal of pride in the cultural heritage of his people. And that has been a period of 50 years of that project. You must understand that after the death of King Shaka, there was a little bit of instability in the Zulu nation, and more so after the Anglo-Zulu War in 1879. But then, since the King came to power in 1971, the project of renewal, renaissance of Zulu cultural heritage has been in the forefront of his agenda. The last time I met with him was on the 18th of December 2020. We had a long meeting here in Mpangeni where he was discussing what he would like us to do in terms of taking Zulu culture forward in the coming years.
And just on taking the culture of AmaZulu forward then, because you're a man with a music background, what is the role of music in preserving the cultural norms, traditions, and recording historic moments such as this, the passing of a king?
Well, music is central because in most African traditions, and especially here so, music is central because in most African traditions, music records events. When something happens to you, if you are head of the family, let me talk about AmaZulu songs. If you are head of the family, like you're moving from this area to another area with your family, you're relocating, you would compose a song on that. And that song would be the song of your clan in future times, and they will sing it in very ritual times when it's a wedding or a funeral of the head of the family. and as well as when they are going to war. Because it's the music that actually invites the participation of the ancestors in the affairs of the living. The ancestors get moved by traditional Zulu music, especially Amabutho songs, as well as all the other songs that the Amabutho are singing today, and will be singing even tomorrow. Is to invite the participation of the ancestors. It's religious, it's a belief system that is complete on its own, that when people die, they go to another land where they become powerful and keep on coming to assist those who are living with understanding of life, with breakthroughs and all of those things. It's a complete belief system. Now, in my ethnomusicology background, what I was studying was the meaning. What is the meaning of a Hubo song, not the text? Why must they perform it at this point in time in the life of an individual? Now you find that the individual throughout his life is accompanied by different types of music. That the first station is when he's born, and then the next station is puberty, and then the next station is when he gets married, and then the next station, of course, is when they die. There's different types of music. So music enriches life in Zulu culture and in most other African cultures in the sub-Saharan Africa.
And just on the reflections about the King's love for music, I've seen video online of him playing, I think it was the piano, and some people have said that as traditional and culturally aware and sensitive as he was, he also had very strong links and beliefs linked to the church, and I'd imagine that also came through in some of the music he enjoyed.
Well, the King was... The King was both a traditionalist. He was also deeply Christian. In my last meeting with him, because he's been aware of my music activities and my compositions and what we do together, he told me how he came about to learn how to play the keyboard. It was 3 years ago. And of course, he was blaming me for not teaching him. But it was 3 years ago, and he says that it came to him through a dream. He was sleeping at night, and somebody just told him to wake up and go and play the keyboard himself. Now, that keyboard had been bought by one of his queens, Mam Krisa, who was also there in that meeting we had. And she had bought it for her children to learn to play the keyboard. And she was also saying there's no teacher at KwaNongoma for these things. Then the King, in a period of 3 years, has mastered the keyboard. But I must also say that he's a preacher at his church. He was a preacher at his church, and he was very, very Christian. So he had this life of being purely traditional and understanding the traditional belief system, and also understanding the Christian belief system. And the keyboard, one of the things he wanted to do this year was to record a CD of, in our studios, a CD of gospel music, which he was composing himself, and sometimes taking traditional Amabutho songs and gospelizing them so that he could relate to both the world of the Christian faith and the world of the traditional African faith.
Professor Musa Xulu, good to speak to you. It's certainly been most interesting. We finally managed to persevere through all of those technical challenges there. It is at the time of the pandemic where these virtual interviews sadly come with their ups and downs. But anyway, let's move